Now, progression between body paragraphs. This is the second tip here, okay? Something that a lot of students struggle with is actually differentiating between their ideas. Are you in that position where you have an essay, but there's no real reason for why the first body paragraph comes first? Why does the second paragraph go second? Do you simply just have 3 different themes that you're exploring and you've just put them in a random order? Or is there a good reason for the way that you've structured your argument? And that's why I would recommend all of you go back over your draft essays and isolate the topic sentences. So get your 3 topic sentences, for example, assuming you have a 3 body paragraph structure. Get the 3 topic sentences and stack them on top of one another and read them out and see, is there a sequence there? Are you genuinely moving the argument forward? When I draft an essay, the very first thing I do is the topic sentences. It's not the introduction. Why would I draft an introduction when I don't even know what I'm introducing? In fact, when I draft an essay, the last thing I do is the introduction. Which sounds funny because you're probably thinking, but in the exam, are you saying that we don't write the introduction first? No, in the exam you do because you've already done all the preparation. When you're drafting an essay for the first time in preparation, that's when I don't look at the introduction to start with, because I want to figure out what are my core arguments, what are the 3 points I'm making, and why are they in that order? And it's a very helpful tool that usually works for every text is to make sure that the first idea matches up to the first part of the text. So a lot of my evidence for my first body paragraph would actually come from the beginning of the text. My second paragraph would probably be focused on the idea that comes out in the middle. And my last body paragraph is going to be focused on the ending. How does it end? And it's usually to do with some kind of resolution. The first body paragraph is usually establishing some kind of struggle, some kind of conflict, some problem that the characters are facing. The middle of the text is usually showing how they've responded or what have been the consequences of that problem. So follow a structure like that. Base your evidence on the different parts, the 3 different sections of the text, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Poetry is a little bit different. You would obviously just have to sequence that in terms of ideas that make sense going from one to another to show different perspectives. But that's the only real exception there. If you're doing anything other than poetry, in which case, again, you would just go poem A, poem B, poem C, and you would choose an appropriate order based on the ideas that are coming out. Try and work from a problem towards a potential solution. A negative towards a positive. Negative, bad things to good things is a good way of structuring any kind of essay. And it might not be good things at the end. It might not be positive, but you're working towards the question or the possibility of something good happening, even if it doesn't happen in the text. Like you may have done a text like 1984 or The Crucible where there's a really tragic ending, but nonetheless, it's at least giving us hope potentially of what it takes, or it's giving us a sense of urgency to respond to the text so that we avoid that potential catastrophe, whatever it is. Okay, so we need to make sure the body paragraphs are moving forward, and I've just told you an example of how you might want to restructure your evidence. Make sure your quotes are not just random. Who has quotes and you don't really know where they have come from in the text? Like, you know they're a good quote, but they're not ordered, and you wouldn't know like the chapters or the sections that they've come from. Just show of hands there. Okay, so there's a lot of us in that boat, right? It is definitely worth going back, and it won't take that much time. Just think about where those quotes actually came from. And I'm not saying you have to match up the quotes with exactly where they were in the text and then they have to go in that order, but it's a good default. It's a good thing to do as a starting point. And then if you choose to use a quote from later in the text earlier, at least have a good reason for that. Because it wouldn't make sense to have a quote from the end of the text right at the beginning, and you might have done that without knowing, when actually the context of that quote was something completely different to what you have associated with. So don't associate quotes that had a different context with a prior idea that doesn't fit with it. So make sure you know where the quotes are coming from in the text, and think about reordering it. A lot of you are probably in a position where you would benefit from just restructuring it. I'm not saying you need to go and find completely new evidence. I'm saying think about how you've ordered it all together. Now, that's how you can improve the progression of your topic sentences. Once again, a very useful tactic for your body paragraphs is to go through the order of the text and find an idea that matches up with each section, the beginning, the middle, and the end. You'll find that it follows this kind of structure for 3 body paragraphs. The first body paragraph should be establishing a tension, a conflict, a problem. As you know, that's what happens at the beginning of a text. There's usually a complication. What is that complication in the text? Start with that and break that down in that body paragraph. Okay, next thing. What is the response to that problem? What does the protagonist or the persona go on to do? What do they struggle doing it, and why? What are the consequences of that problem? That's what you can explore in the middle one. And then the last one is there a resolution? How is this problem resolved, if at all? Maybe the problem isn't resolved and you need to explain why. Again, that might be to create urgency. It might be to frighten the reader that there is no positive outcome unless you do something about it. 1984 in mind and things like that. But often in a text, there is some kind of resolution. Even in The Crucible, the protagonist ends up dead, but he stood up for the truth. So he sacrificed himself. So there was an act of heroism, and you could say that that is there to inspire the audience. So how does the text end, and what's the core concept associated with that? Make sure you're not storytelling and just saying, oh, the novel ends this way. You don't say it like that. I'm saying you should think about the ending and then say the idea. But it shouldn't be obvious that you're saying at the ending of the novel, like at the end of the novel. Don't word it that way. That's just how you should approach it, or could approach it. Again, it's one approach. There's many approaches. I believe there's an example on here. I mean, if you're doing module A and you're doing 2 texts, you probably want to split. If you're doing 4 body paragraphs, 4 bodies, you probably want to think about it in 2 halves. So 2 key ideas, and then how is that idea explored in each one? Here's an example of language that will help you do it. And one of the key takeaways here is that the way you actually word your topic sentences can be really helpful for forcing you to do the right thing. Now, don't worry if you're not doing Shakespeare and Atwood. Don't worry about the actual text here. Have a look at the wording that forces you to structure your topic sentences in a progressive way, so that your argument actually goes forward and it's not going sideways or backwards. What word do you guys think is important in the first topic sentence there? That's an example of 2 topic sentences. In the first one, what's the key word that makes it clear that this is the beginning, this is the first paragraph? To instigate something is to begin something. Instigate, you started it. You know, who instigated the fight means who started it. Shakespeare starts the textual conversation by doing this, by exposing this idea. The language there makes it clear that that's your first topic sentence. Very subtle, but you guys can work on using words like that. This one, instigates, might only be relevant for a module A textual conversation one, but it's the principle of using words that make it clear where you are. The second body paragraph, what are the key words there that signal that this is directly following the first body paragraph? So what you're looking at where it says Atwood responds to this Jacobian representation, that's the second topic sentence. What makes it clear that that's the second topic sentence? Responds to this, okay? Responds to this. Atwood responds. She's responding to that first one. And the other key word is this. This is really good because it's saying this representation, meaning it's referring back to what was just said in the first body paragraph. Here's an example from a common module essay. In this case, it's on The Crucible. Look, it doesn't matter if you're not doing The Crucible, but have a look at how the problem, consequence, and resolution is formatted here, because everyone can use a similar structure to this. Everyone can use a similar structure to what you're seeing on the screen. What word makes it clear that the first topic sentence, and by the way, these are 3 topic sentences. They haven't all been filled out, of course, because I'm just showing you how to frame it. And there's that fill in the blank aspect. But what word in the first topic sentence, Miller exposes the tension between moral integrity and the fear of social alienation when power might be exploited or something. Now, What word there indicates that that is clearly to do with the problem at the beginning of the play? So you've got exposes the tension. That's a nice phrase because the tension means that there is a problem, that there is a conflict. You don't have to use the word problem, and you shouldn't really use the word problem. That's just to help you guys think about it. But exposes the tension or exposes the conflict between. Telling us what the conflicts between is going to be a really useful way of breaking down that first point, that first topic sentence. What about the second body paragraph? What are we starting the second topic sentence with? That's very obvious. That is clearly going to talk about the impact of the problem. Consequently, by using consequently, it forces you to do the right thing. Why does consequently force you to do the right thing in terms of the paragraph progression? Forces you to talk about a consequence. By saying consequently, you are literally forcing yourself to say what one consequence is, a big consequence is, of that initial conflict. Cause was the problem, the effect is there in the second body, and then the ultimate resolution, nonetheless, Miller suggests this, you're now saying, well, look, this is how it kind of ends, and this is the idea that's introduced at the end. Again, don't say the word ends and in the middle of the text and at the beginning, don't say it like that, but this is basically all framed in connection with those different parts of the text. So consequently, this pursuit of power. Have a look back at the second topic sentence. Can everyone see how it says, not just consequently, this? The word this is really powerful. So everyone should be writing that down for you to try and use in your own topic sentences to link back to the point you just made. This pursuit of power, and then tell me what the consequence is. By looking at your topic sentences in this way, you're going to improve the sophistication of your argument and the structure. Remember, when you go back through your drafts, one key tip that I would suggest you all follow is to write down the 3 topic sentences just like you see here, in full. I know here they're not all filled out. Write down your 3 topic sentences for each essay, back to back like this, and make sure there is a progression. You don't have to do it in this exact way, but make sure the ideas are moving forward. And then go and select or reorder your evidence accordingly to make sure they all match up to that idea. So don't be afraid to restructure your essays completely in the next week or so, but certainly in the next 2 weeks, you want to get this all finalized so that you have that 2-week period to memorize everything.